Successful companies in the future will be those that have innovated around recruitment, around retention, and around learning and development. Well, those are the organisations that will thrive 5, 10, 15 years from now because they've invested today. So many companies have had to take some pretty tough decisions as we've gone through the crisis, and those are survival decisions. So those organisations would not survive without doing some of the things they've done. They've got to realise that those decisions come with consequences. If you've cut your graduate recruitment programme, that probably means that in 5 to 15 years' time, you won't have the next cadre of leaders coming through in the business. You've got to think about, have you broken the bond with employees? Somehow has that measure of trust been eroded? Do people no longer think about you as the organisation they want to spend their career in? So have they become more mercenary? And I sincerely believe that those organisations that have worked hard to do that and have retained that talent and kept that bond of trust with employees are the ones that will succeed 10 or 15 years from now. A huge amount of work has been done over the last 15 years to look at brands and how those brands play out into the customer base. I think the next 15 years we're going to see a lot of work around how the employees are engaged with their employer brand.
So one of the challenges that will definitely present itself to companies in the future will be the fact that they will have this millennial generation who will have a different perspective and a different view on what they want to get out of work. They'll be trying to satisfy them in the context of also trying to satisfy 3, sometimes even 4 other generations of workers, which will be a real challenge for organisations to make sure they can meet the needs of each one of those generations in the way in which they provide an employment package to them.
So the impact on pension and healthcare, again, I think as the world has gone into recession, organisations have recognised that this is a huge expense, which in many cases dwarfs the other costs in the business. You've got organisations where their healthcare liabilities are many, many times their market capitalisation. So organisations have to deal with that. So organisations, employers starting to say, we're putting the burden back onto our employees. They have to manage these costs themselves. The day of the paternalistic employer that provides everything from health, welfare, and finally payments on retirement, I think we're starting to see those employers disappear.
So there's not been enough longevity in the way in which reward has focused on people's performance, and I think that will be a significant difference. People will be looked at in the future over a period of time and rewarded over a period of time rather than at a discrete, specific moment.
There's a number of scenarios. You can think about the HR function being nothing more than an administrative function, moving people around, dealing with pay and rations. Or, under another scenario, you could see the HR function becoming the true partner of the CEO, actually helping to shape and develop the plans of that business, because, as the CEOs tell us, the one thing that constrains CEOs' ambitions to grow is the absence of key talent. So why wouldn't you want to engage with the part of the organisation that has responsibility for that key talent? So I say again, I think we're at an inflection point. Either HR becomes very relevant and the partner of the CEO, or it becomes irrelevant.
So within our report, we looked at several different organisations and how they approach the future. And we looked at how they, over time, had used a process around scenario planning to predict or at least forecast various ways in which the future might turn out. And they created for themselves the opportunity to adjust their strategy over time. I think that although the report was about a fictional set of organisations, all faced with slightly different economic environments and coming at them with a different angle, I think that the report actually reflects the reality of what will need to be done by organisations to be successful in the future, and therefore creating a series of scenarios, a series of real options, if you like, on how they can move forward through the future that gives organisations that are successful the ability and the freedom to adjust their strategy effectively will be critical.
So we're working with a number of organisations that are seeing the current global crisis as an opportunity to do different things and be very innovative. 2 examples I can think of. One, an organisation that's approached the way it deploys talent around the world in a very different way, looking at it much more as an opportunity not just to satisfy an immediate labour need in a particular market, but actually to develop the brightest and the best in that organisation at all levels. Another organisation we're working with is looking at the whole area of training and development and seeing the fact that people in some areas are less busy at the moment as not an opportunity to put people on short-time working or make them redundant, but actually as an opportunity to develop their skills in different areas. I think to be competitive over the next decade, companies need to recognise that the key element of that competitive advantage comes from the people, the talent they have in their business. And they've got to invest and they've got to nurture that talent in the same way as they invest in the capital equipment they'll need for the future, as they invest in R&D, as they invest in the intellectual property.